Hey, this is the coach, Brian Wright, and today I am hopping on for the Coach's Corner to talk about something Patricio Pitbull just said. He was being interviewed about how it's hard to find fights in the UFC and that how Bellator guys are built different. Look, when you fight in Bellator, you had a small group of talent that was not afraid of losing their job. These were people that were fighting for a really nice chunk of change against a small crew of people that they were very well aware of. You really didn't have the opportunity to say no because you only had so many opportunities a year to make your living. They're not doing events every weekend. I don't even know how many shows they were doing, but if they did 12 shows a year, it was a lot. Then you've got UFC, which is a completely different animal. The problem with the UFC situation for athletes is that if they have a bad outing, they're running the risk of being cut. So the pressure is great at all times. Bellator didn't have that pressure. Bellator, you went in, win, lose, or draw, you put on a show. If you had a name, you were going to be brought back. You had guaranteed pay. You weren't really caring. Am I going for the title? Not going for the title? No matter what, you're making a nice living. It is what it is. You fight once or twice a year, make a lot of money, and that's it. UFC is different. UFC, you don't put on a good show, they can cut you. And then where do you go? There's no more Bellator to go to anymore. What, you're going to go to PFL and you're going to make, no money fighting on a show that not that many people are watching? The UFC is the NFL of MMA. It is different. UFC fighters are different. They are more difficult to match up because they do care about rankings. They do care about how they're going to look. The stress and the pressure is something that no other show on the planet can compare to. And I'm not saying this as a UFC shill. I'm saying this as a real person in the sport who's been there and seen how it works. I'm telling you, every fight in the UFC is looked at as the Super Bowl of fighting by the athlete that's in there. They're looking at it and they're saying, if I lose this fight, I may never come back. That's very different than the handful of guys that were on a Bellator roster making good money that were saying, hey, go out there, win or lose, entertain the crowd, keep the boss happy, and I'll keep getting paid. So yeah, Patricio Pitbull, it is harder to get the fights that you want because everybody is more picky because the consequences are that much higher. You need to get over that, and you need to understand Bellator is out of business because the way the UFC operates. The UFC is an organization that you climb the ladder towards something that actually matters. It's not just enriching your paycheck. It is getting the hype and the cloud and the paycheck and everything you need so that you can develop within the sport and outside the sport. Because as you climb the ladder, the sponsors are going to get better, the attention's going to get higher, the opportunities are going to get greater. That did not exist in Bellator. So yeah, you're not built different in a better way. You're just built different because you got comfortable in a small league that paid you well. I'm very happy that you made the money that you made in the situation that you were in. But now you are in the biggest league on the planet, and you're going to have to conform to how this league operates. You're not just going to go out there and put on an interesting show and expect to get another contract. You've got to go out there and you've got to win. You're going to have to beat the young guys that are trying to knock you off your spot if you want to stay here. If you want to be a couple fights in and out, that's fine. The UFC is more than happy to take a Bellator athlete, put them through the ringer, and then not give them another contract. A, they're going to be able to say the UFC has always been better than Bellator. And B, they're not going to have to pay you the inflated amount of money that they pay you because they brought you over from an inflated amount of pay in Bellator. That's just how this business works. And now you've got Ronda Rousey fighting Gina Carano. Interesting fight. It's a spectacle. It's not a sports fight. I'm totally fine with it. Then you got Francis Ngannou. He's going to fight somebody who is somebody that cut with a winning record from the UFC. I've got to do more homework and figure out what the hell happened there. But you got Ronda Rousey hopping on the mic, and she's saying that the UFC wasn't what it was before, that it's not the happy family with, the father figure of Dana taking care of you, and that, it's corporate now and all that stuff. Okay. Champions are not leaving the UFC to go elsewhere to make more money. The people that are competitive in the UFC are staying in the UFC because they're consistently making better and better money. They are getting more and more opportunity. You don't go to the UFC and die. You go to Netflix to end your career with a big paycheck. and then you talk a bunch of crap about how the UFC isn't what it used to be, okay, fine. So you're tapping into the negativity of a negative fan base, and you're trying to get these people to tune in because they see you as someone that's going to change the game. People, the game has already been changed. The UFC got $1.1 billion a year from Paramount, and they got billions of dollars from other TV networks. Pay-per-view is going away. You get to pay less money to watch more fights. They haven't figured out yet how to fully compensate the fighters. They haven't figured out what a fighter's value is, but that will come over time. The UFC is the NFL of MMA, and it's going to have to conform to a little bit more of a NFL, say, model. NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, they all run on a system of kind of like regular season, then playoffs, then championships, wash and repeat. The UFC will 100% move more along that kind of line where the rankings are going to matter, where you'll see more of a playoff type situation moving towards the belt, and then the belts are consistently going to have to be defended. It definitely will be a system like that so that the gamblers know what they're looking for, that the TV stations are going to know exactly the product that they're putting out, how many eyeballs they can predict are coming along, and fighters are going to have a much more clear path. Right now, that path is a little muddy because as a joke, I mean, Dana basically was like, I want $1 billion a year. And Paramount said, okay. That's wild. This happened very quickly, and the sport changed dramatically overnight. And now they're trying to figure it out. Before that, it wasn't a publicly traded company with a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders. But that's where we're at now. The UFC has a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders through TKO. And now they have to bring a certain amount of attention to Paramount. Okay, they got the attention on Paramount. They're making the money that the shareholders need. And now they've got to figure out, okay, going forward, how are we going to structure it? It's going to take time. You got to give them the time to do it. Fighters have never gotten paid worse. Fighters have been consistently getting paid better. The UFC is the only league that you get paid more, at least not you make the same money when you lose and you make better money when you win every single time. And the other one is when you take a short notice fight, you get a new contract for more money you were getting paid before. If you take a fight outside your weight class because they really need you to, you get more money than you ever got before. And that money stays forever. It's not like they pay you one time and it goes away. You get that money forever. That's your new baseline. And you just keep growing from there. So when Ronda's getting on there and she's saying that everybody's leaving because they want to get paid fairly, that's not really true. You know, she says Dana was happy for her to go to make the money. Sure, I'm sure he was happy for her. You know, good. On your retirement tour, go make some money. You know, you're fighting another person that the two of you are basically geriatrics in a young person's sport. You're going to put on an interesting show. You're going to get a ton of people behind it. You're going to make a lot of money. That's fantastic. But you're not changing the sport. You're not creating a new league. You're not providing any opportunities for anybody except fighters on the way out the door. And I'm completely fine with that. If these guys want to leave the UFC at the end of their career and go to celebrity type spectacle events and make more money than they've ever made before, if people are willing to pay for it, fantastic. But the guys that are in the league, stay the course. You're going to make more money over a career than one night. Develop a good career, march towards the title. Don't chase glory, chase your spots. Go for those belts because that's where the better money is. That's where the opportunity really lies. And people have to understand that as a sport, there's a structure to this. This is not a pure entertainment and spectacle business. There is still a sport aspect to it. Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano is pure spectacle using the rules of sport. Francis Ngannou versus whomever is pure spectacle. He's not the linear pound for pound greatest fighter of all time. No, he's a very smart business person who left the UFC and basically bankrupted the PFL. Came in there, acted like he was going to be a game changer. The only person who got positive change out of any of the moves Francis Ngannou has made is Francis Ngannou. I do not fault him for that. I am not dumping on him. Don't get mad at me. Don't think I'm being a shill or stupid or whatever. The people that are leaving and chasing the money, good for them. Go chase your money. Go make your money. But the people that are trying to make long-term careers, that are young guys in the sport, you can't be Francis Ngannou or John Jones or Ronda Rousey or Gina Carano when you're 20-something years old. You're going to do that in your late 30s after you've made yourself famous. Then you're going to take your fame, and then you can partner up with the Jake Paul of that era and put on some kind of freak show and make a lot of money. It is what it is. That's the entertainment side of it. But right now, again, all the critics that are just throwing shade on everything, look, you may not like the matchups, but man, it's a lot better paying, the $12 to $18 a month we pay for Paramount now than $80 a pay-per-view. And I don't see any young people coming up saying, I want to be a PFL fighter, or I want to be a there's nowhere else to go fighter. Everybody says I want to be a UFC fighter. Everybody on every roster, everywhere says, for me to be the best, I got to go to the UFC. Nobody's saying they want to go fight in Russia or fight in Bahrain or fight in Africa or fight in France for some weird promotion. No, you're only doing those things because you're trying to get the notice and the experience needed to get the call from the UFC to go to Contender or to go directly in. It is what it is. The UFC is the top of the food chain. We've got to stop complaining about it, and we've got to start analyzing it. We've got to start saying, okay, how can we work on developing a better structure within the organization that's going to give more opportunity to take care of people? That's basically it. That's been my message all along. I do like the UFC. I think what it's done for the sport, how it's structured it, how it's basically taken chaos and calmed it down and given a real path for athletes. It's the only sport that you can come to late in life, learn a skill set, get some experience, and, make a career out of it. Every other sport on the planet, you got to start when you're 5 years old. You can come to MMA at 20 years old, and you have a real chance of making it to the UFC if you're an athlete and your body's okay. So, yeah, UFC is the pipeline. That is where we're going. So Patricio Pitbull, yeah, Bellator is not UFC, never was, never could be, put itself out of business in the process of trying to be. PFL is not the UFC. PFL just got sold again. PFL can't figure out how to make a tournament work, so I think they're getting rid of it. Is what it is. They don't have the money, the structure, or the organization behind it. The UFC is a social media monster. They literally make a movie every freaking week around these events. These events are monsters. The amount of money they have is untouchable by anybody else. There's no Saudi coming in and going to invest in a show that can even compare to what the UFC has developed over time. So yeah, Ronda, really good job selling your fight, but you didn't change anything except your, bank account, and good for you. I'm glad to see you do it. I may sound salty, but I'm really not. I'm super happy that Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey get to fight. We get to watch it. They get to make a lot of money, and they can do whatever they want with it. And this MVV Productions will probably do some more events, and they'll constantly say the UFC sucks and it doesn't pay fighters what they're worth. But that's not true. And what they're doing is purely entertainment, and it is purely spectacle, and it is a completely different market with different finances to it. So good for them for doing it. I'm happy that people are going to benefit from it. I'm happy we're going to get entertained by it. But let's stop pretending that this is a positive change for the sport. This is just another way to entertain the fan base. The UFC is the sport. Everything else is not even close to a second place because there's no second place. Everything else is just this massive pool of whatever. So, yeah, we just have to understand what it is. We have to accept it. And, yeah, we can throw shade all we want. But if you're going to throw shade at the UFC, I would say do it with some real numbers. Do it with some real answers. Don't just come with questions, but come with some proposals of how they can do it. Because the problem with the UFC is that they don't need to listen to any of us. And unless you're talking to them in a way that's going to show them how they can increase their bottom line by structuring better, they're not going to change. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing. So the fiduciary responsibility of the shareholder situation is really important. You're going to have to prove to shareholders that paying fighters better is going to cause the company to make more money. That's the only way that this works. So yes, have a real conversation, not an emotional one. Don't talk about old facts and figures. Look at the world of MMA as it is today. See who benefits and then we can have a real conversation about the structure and the money and the dynamics. All right, this is the coach. I've ranted long enough. Peace.